Well, grade 6, it's time for everybody's favorite math concept, algebra. But remember, grade 6, that it doesn't have to be scary as long as you carefully follow the steps. You will be totally fine. You can do this. All right, so we have done algebra before, and we did it with addition and subtraction. For today's lesson, we're going to be doing very, very similar questions. The only difference is going to be that instead of adding and subtracting, we are going to be multiplying and dividing. All right, so I have listed for you here the steps that we followed last time, and we're going to follow those exact same steps. But first, just a little bit of a review. Algebra is really all about finding an unknown amount. So you should remember from the last time I taught you about algebra, we can use examples like, for instance, the example of having a plate of cookies. So I have a plate of cookies right here, but that plate of cookies is covered. We don't know how many cookies are on that plate. The things we do know, however, are what is happening to the cookies. So in this example, the cookies are being multiplied by 2, and we also know the final result, what we ended up with. So the whole goal of algebra is to find out what was the starting point. What is that unknown amount? What is that unknown amount of cookies in this example? And remember, because we're just starting to learn about algebra, the questions are, well, you probably could figure out most of them in your head if you just did a little bit of thinking about them. This cookie example, you for sure could figure out in your head. All you have to do is think, well, what times 2 gets me 4 cookies? Very, very easy to think it's 2 cookies under that cover, okay? But remember what I also said the last time we did algebra, the really, really important thing to focus on is these algebraic steps that I am teaching you, okay? So even though you can probably figure out the answer on your own without the steps, those steps are going to become really, really important as you go to grade 7 and beyond. All right, so let's look at some examples of questions that you will see today. And let me switch my pen color. All right, so here we have an example of a times 2 equals 20. So the a is our unknown amount. That's that plate of cookies. We don't know how many cookies there are on the plate to begin with. All we know is that the cookies are being multiplied by 2. So let's jump back here to the steps. The first step is to write out the equation. Now, that on these slides that I'm giving you and also on your worksheet is going to be done for you. So you can actually kind of skip step 1. So let's move straight to step 2. What is being done to the letter or the unknown amount? Well, here, the unknown amount is being multiplied by 2. So keep that in your mind. The unknown amount is being multiplied by 2. Once you know that, you have to do the opposite thing to both sides of the equation. So what I'm going to do is rewrite my a times 2. So the a is being multiplied by 2. Now what I have to do is do the opposite of multiplying by 2, which is dividing by 2. Okay, so we've done the opposite to one side. But in order for the equal sign to be true, in order for both sides of this equation to be equal, we also need to do the same thing over on the other side. So we need to take our 20 and divide it by 2. Okay, so really, really important that you remember to do the opposite thing to both sides. Now, we learned this last time with addition and subtraction. So if I were to add 2 and then subtract 2, really those two actions have canceled each other out because they are opposites. The same thing with multiplying by 2 and dividing by 2. If you multiplied the cookies by 2 and then divided them by 2, nothing would have happened. You'd end up with the same amount of cookies. So you can actually just cross those right out. Then all you have left is the letter A. And then all you have to do is do 20 divided by 2, which gets you a 10, and that is your final answer. And that is step 4. Calculate the answer, and you write the letter equals answer. So just like I did over here, the letter A equals 10. Okay, so really grade 6, if you remember what we had done with addition and subtraction, you're doing pretty much the exact same thing, just with multiplication and division. Let's go through a few more examples just to really get that back into your head. All right, so let's do another example with multiplication. We have n being multiplied by 4, and we know that the end result is 140. So you start out by thinking, what is being done to the letter n? Well, it's being multiplied by 4. So we have to do the opposite thing. So you first start by writing it out, n times 4. We want to get rid of that. So we divide by 4. And we need to do the opposite thing to both sides. So I need to divide that by 4 as well. Okay, so doing the opposite thing to both sides. Then all you have to do is calculate the answer. Multiplying by 4 and then dividing by 4. Those cancel each other out. We end up with just an n. And then you have to do 140 divided by 4. Now, maybe you can't do that in your head. So all you have to do is 140 divided by 4. A little bit of long division here again. Whoa, don't know what happened there. Let's make that 4 look a little more like a 4. So all you have to do, think to yourself, how many times does 4 go into 14? It goes 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. We end up with a remainder of 2. We bring down our 0. How many times does 4 go into 20? It goes 5 times. And we are finished our long division. So 140 divided by 4 is 35. So n is equivalent to 35, and that is our final answer. So sometimes you may have to end up doing this. You may have to do long division or long multiplication to get the answer, but the steps are still the same. Let's do a couple of examples with division. So division works very, very similarly. We have a divided by 4 equals 25. So we start out by thinking, what's being done to that letter? The letter A is being divided by 4. So we want to do the opposite thing. And the opposite of division is multiplication. So we want to multiply by 4. But remember, we have to do the opposite thing to both sides. So we have to multiply by 4 over on the right side as well. All right, so dividing by 4 and multiplying by 4 cancels each other out. We end up with an A equals 100. If you think about money, you've got 25 cents. 4 of those equals 100 cents. One more thing that I would like to show you. Oh, actually 2 more things. I don't have a slide, so hopefully I'll remember after this example. All right. Sometimes your algebraic equations are going to be written like this when they use division. When we have n over 20, the fraction symbol should always make you think of division. The fraction symbol really is a division symbol. So I'll do a little box or something over here. Oop, my pen's not working. There we go. So we have done a few days ago, don't remember how many days ago, when we had 1/4. And remember, you had to do 1 divided by 4 to change it into a decimal. So the fraction symbol is really just another way to show division. So when you see n over 20, what it's really saying is n divided by 20, okay? So it's just another way to show that. And we work the problem in a very similar way. So we have our n being divided by 20. So all you have to do is still think in your head, what's happening to the n? It's being divided by 20. So we have to multiply by 20. Okay, it's just a little bit of a different way to show your work here. But it means the exact same thing as what we were doing over here. Okay, just a bit of a different way to show it. So since we have decided we need to multiply by 20, we have to do that to both sides. And these cancel each other out because we are multiplying by 20. And then remember, this means dividing by 20. So those are opposite things. They cancel each other out. We end up with an n, and we end up with a 200 over here as our final answer. Okay, so some of your questions on your worksheet are going to look like this, and you should show your work like this, but it means the exact same thing as a question like this. One more thing that I wanted to show you. Let me make a new slide here. So sometimes your questions are going to look, let's use a pen, like a times 2 equals something. Other times they will be written as 2 times a equals something, whatever it was. What was my example at the beginning? 20, I think? Yeah. Let's make it official. So just so you are aware, grade 6, these two things, a times 2 and 2 times a, mean the exact same thing because your answer will end up being the same. So if you think about like 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2. That's one of the properties of multiplication, that you can switch those around. So if you get a question that looks like this and you would like to rewrite it like this to show your work, that is fine. Okay, if that makes it a little bit easier for your brain to follow those steps, that's good for now. Then just a couple of instructions for your worksheet. You're not going to be working in your textbook today, just the worksheet, the algebra worksheet that you got at the most recent drive-through. You're going to be doing both sides. And what's really, really important here, grade 6, is that you show all of the steps. Okay, I said it the last time we studied algebra, I maybe only care 10% about you getting the correct answer. The rest of the 90% of my caring is that you know how to do those steps. Okay, so make sure that you are writing out the steps just like I showed you in this video, and I think your worksheet also has an example. Show these steps very, very clearly. Remember, learning the steps is going to be so, so, so important as you move on in math. All right, so showing those steps. When you get the marking sheet tomorrow, the steps will be shown for you so you can double check that you are doing those right as well. All right, so showing the steps, doing the whole worksheet. I think that's all I have to say to you. And if you have any questions, as always, let me know.